Hello and welcome to another episode of Raw Politics. Today, I want to urge you to put aside your political biases, to put aside the emotions, and to put aside your preconceived views. And let us answer objectively the question, who between President Ruto and the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, betrayed the other? If that is a subject you are interested in, I'm urging you to stay tuned because we will really go into details on this. And if you are watching for the first time, just take a moment and subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss subsequent videos. But if you are a returning subscriber, I want to thank you sincerely for standing with this channel. Otherwise, let us jump right into the subject of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, to answer the question who betrayed who between Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua, allow me to give you a brief history of the relationship between these two men. These two men, ladies and gentlemen, might have known each other way before. However, their friendship became prominent during the handshake government. That is a period between 2018 and 2022. During this particular period, President Uhuru Kenyatta made the decision to have a working relationship with Raila Odinga. President Uhuru Kenyatta then decided that he was going to support Raila Odinga for the 2022 presidential election, knowing very well that Ruto, his deputy, had also expressed interest, and also considering that Uhuru himself had promised to back Ruto when Ruto's time came. There were two reasons why Mount Kenya was rebelling with Uhuru. One, he brought in Raila, who Mount Kenya were not very fond of, and so there was that outright spontaneous rebellion against Uhuru for betraying them and bringing in Raila Odinga. But also, too, there was this feeling of betrayal on the part of William Ruto, in that Uhuru Kenyatta had promised yangu kumi na ya Ruto kumi. So it was natural in that particular gentleman's understanding that when Uhuru's term came to an end, he would gladly endorse his deputy, Dr. William Ruto, to take over as the president. But that was never be, because Uhuru had now made it very clear that he had changed his mind and he was now backing Raila Odinga. One person who was very vocal against Uhuru's move for both bringing Raila on board and secondly, apparent betrayal of William Ruto, was the Madeira MP, the one Rigathi Gachagua. He was so vocal, and considering his history as a PA to Uhuru Kenyatta, he had very unkind words for Uhuru Kenyatta. And he was so vocal that Uhuru Kenyatta decided that he would narrow down on the Madeira MP and really dealt with him. He was being persecuted for both being anti-handshake, but also extremely pro-William Ruto. So these two gentlemen grew fond of each other. President Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua grew fond of each other because in that particular scenario, Rigathi Gachagua was showing that he was willing to do virtually anything to defend and stand with William Ruto. They grew fond of each other, and it went to a point where people now had started saying that apart from frontrunner like Kindiki, Kithure, and others, because it had been decided that the running mate for Ruto's running mate was going to come from Mount Kenya, the names that were being floated then included the Honorable Kindiki Kithure, who was then senator for Tharaka Nithi, and we had people like Alice Waome, we had people like Ndindi Nyoro, people like Anne Waiguru, and the one-time MP from Madeira, the Honorable Rigathi Gachagua. he was also now a contender. So they became fond of each other. The bromance was there. And finally, against all odds, and when I say all odds is that the Mount Kenya MPs were given a chance to pick who they thought should have deputized William Ruto. And once they settled on Kindiki, William Ruto still settled on Rigathi Gachagua. Even though majority of the people from Mount Kenya, especially the MPs in Karen then, were settling for one Kindiki Kithure, the president, the deputy president then, Dr. William Ruto, ended up with Rigathi Gachagua. But there's one point I want us to note in this brief history I'm giving. When the president gave his speech when he was unveiling Rigathi Gachagua at Karen, there are two important statements that he made. But one stood out. The president said that him and Rigathi Gachagua had agreed that when their time came, they would live together. He meant that they were going for a two-term presidency, and when Ruto retired, Rigathi Gachagua was also going to retire. And he explained the reason behind this. So because you had a very detailed manifesto that required all hands on deck, it required that people were focused on delivering this particular manifesto, and that was not going to be possible if he was going to do it with a deputy who was interested in vying, who was having political ambitions higher than that particular office. So he made it clear that him and Rigathi Gachagua had agreed that they were going to retire together, meaning Rigathi Gachagua was not going to vie for president. That was the agreement. The second thing that President William Ruto said during the unveiling of Rigathi Gachagua at Karen was that during the 10 years that they'll serve, God willing, they would spend that time mentoring the young people. And the young people were called by names, the likes of Ndindi Nyoro, the likes of Kindiki Kithure, and others. These were young leaders that they were going to mentor so that when they leave office, they would have left people who understood how the system is run, who were going to be better leaders than they were. That is what the president said. So I want you to note those two things. That the deal was Rigathi Gachagua was not going to vie for president. And they had agreed to that because the president read that publicly. It was not some secret that was kept between them. No, the president read that publicly. He said that publicly, that I and my deputy have agreed that when we leave, we will live together. But in the meantime, we will mentor people who will take over from us. Now that you've understood that, you will now understand where the problems began. The president had promised two things also in an interview, but also in Karen, that he will never have a deputy president who had no roles, that he will use an executive order and give the office of the deputy president serious roles so that the deputy president was not just going to sit there and depend on the president's moods to get duties. Because according to the Constitution, ladies and gentlemen, Article 147, which describes the roles of the deputy president, none of them is explicit. It is just saying that the deputy president will be the principal assistant of the president and do any other roles given to him. So there are no roles that are given to him except the ones that will come from the president. And if the president decides that he's not going to give the deputy president any role, there's nothing you can do. We saw that with Uhuru Kenyatta. When he could not impeach Ruto because he didn't have the numbers, what he did, he resorted to demeaning his office. First of all, he cut the budget. Number two, he stripped down his security and then denied him roles. He gave anything that he had given Ruto, he moved them to Matiang'i. So that the president, the deputy president was just there earning salary without specific roles. Because remember, your roles depend on what the president tells you to do. Ruto said, I'm not going to have that in my government. My deputy is going to have specific roles and funding for those roles. And two, he also said he will not allow his deputy to be humiliated the way he was, especially by junior staff. And so these two things, they had agreed they are not, Rigathi is not going to vie for president. He's going to focus on helping the president deliver on his promises, the manifesto of UDA, of Kenya Kwanza. And then, two, he's going to give Rigathi roles. So four things. Actually, I said two things, but let me amend it to four things. One, Rigathi Gachagua was never going to vie for president. That was the agreement. Number two, they would spend the 10 years, if they were to get reelected, to mentor young leaders, the likes of Akinani Dinyoro. And number three, that he would give Rigathi Gachagua specific roles. And number four, that his deputy was not going to be humiliated the way he was, especially by junior staff. So those four things. This is what the friendship of President Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua was based on. To define betrayal is, did somebody go against this particular agreement? That is how you define betrayal. Betrayal in simple terms is going against an agreement in a way that it is going to hurt the other person. Betrayal in this case would be twofold. Rigathi Gachagua could betray Ruto by deciding to vie, express interest in vying against how they agreed. And by expressing interest in vying, Rigathi Gachagua would not mentor anyone. Remember, there were four things. You are not vying. We will mentor young people to take over from us. That is Rigathi Gachagua and Ruto. From Ruto's end, I will give you roles and I will make sure that no one mistreats you. On the president's side, it was simple. He would ensure Rigathi Gachagua had roles and that none of his juniors were mistreating the deputy president. So who betrayed who? Let us now answer that question after giving you this history. After getting into office, the President of the Republic, through an executive order, number 1, 2023, revised to executive order number 2, 2023, gave the deputy president serious executive roles. As he promised. The President of the Republic promised that he was going to give his deputy roles, and he gave him roles. What roles are those? According to that executive order, the deputy president chairs all cabinet committees, all. Nothing goes to the cabinet without passing through Rigathi Gachagua. And he doesn't chair them in some place, he chairs them at Karen. And no minister, as the president had promised, that none, even if you differed with Rigathi Gachagua, like Akina Moses Kuria, you were to attend these meetings in Karen and take orders from Rigathi Gachagua, who was the chair of all those committees. Rigathi Gachagua was also given the role to handle devolution. Remember, as of today, there is a PS in handling issues of cabinet. There is a PS on cabinet affairs in the office of the deputy president. Ladies and gentlemen, the deputy president was also in charge of all donor-funded programs. All. Anything that was being funded by development partners, that was under the supervision of Rigathi Gachagua. He was also the one that was liaising between the executive and all independent commissions, the executive and the counties. So his office was not now begging, depending on Ruto's mood, to get duties. No, he had specific roles. Apart from that, the president even went further. He also put all strategic reforms, especially agricultural reforms, in Rigathi's hand. He was the one who was in charge of reforming the coffee sector, the tea sector, and the milk sector. These are specific duties that the president gave Rigathi Gachagua. So as far as Ruto's side was concerned, he was supposed to make sure that his deputy has roles. He did that. Number two, he was supposed to make sure that nobody in his government looked down upon his deputy. And that is why I said that even if Moses Kuria was not very comfortable with Rigathi Gachagua, he would still attend the meetings at Karen. They were not optional. And to date, you've not had an assistant chief or a provincial commissioner or a police commandant trying to intimidate or harassing the deputy president whenever he goes. No. You have not seen, even now when they differ, you've not seen the security of the deputy president stripped or his office starved of cash. Never. He has fulfilled his part. Now, let us, and we will come to the part where Rigathi says that he's being undermined by Ruto's friends. We will come to that. I said we put emotions aside and we go with facts. Because with that, we can now make a decision whether Ruto betrayed Rigathi or whether Rigathi betrayed Ruto. And I've told you the role of Ruto in this particular arrangement was to give Rigathi roles and ensure that his officers toe the line under Rigathi. And that has happened seamlessly, by the way. Now let us go to the Rigathi's part. Rigathi was not to vie, but he comes in, and from the look of things, he has political ambitions. Maybe from his argument is like, this is a very unfair deal. How do you want me not to vie, yet you served 10 years and you vied? So he decides to change the game in the middle. After he's in as deputy president, somehow he tests power and he says, no, there's no way I'm retiring. And why do I say so? Because Rigathi started fighting any person from Mount Kenya who as much as tried to show interest in being a president in the future. Let's take the case of Ndindi Nyoro. The reason as to why Rigathi Gachagua got so much absorbed into the Mount Kenya politics was when he saw Ndindi Nyoro trying to raise his head. Ndindi Nyoro getting some endorsement as the future leader. Remember, they had promised that they will mentor the likes of Ndindi Nyoro. But now Rigathi had changed. He had changed. He was like, no, I'm not going to mentor this person. I'm the senior-most leader in this region. All attention should be on me, not on somebody like Ndindi Nyoro. And so you find yourself, ladies and gentlemen, with a deputy president who initially had agreed that he was not going to vie, he would spend his time in mentoring the young leaders like Ndindi Nyoro, now focused on maybe vying in 2032. In fact, the people around him were already calling him Rigathi the Sixth. Now he is vying, and two, is now fighting the people that he's supposed to mentor. So there you have it. That is where the problem began. Ruto played his part, but Rigathi refused to play his part. He decided that this particular deal that he had been given by Ruto was not something he was keen on keeping. Him not vying, that was not something he was going to work with. He would rather change the deal so that he can vie come 2032. And so this brought a lot of problems because you see, if Ruto was trying to avoid an ambitious deputy president, a deputy president whose focus is how do I become president in the future? Because if that is the focus, this person will not deliver so much. He will not do a lot. Perhaps President Ruto was learning from his arrangement with Uhuru Kenyatta. And he was like, if we want to deliver, because he saw that when he was now busy with 2022 campaigns, Uhuru's second term delivered very little. Little to nothing, actually. So what did he do? He was like, I'm trying to avoid this. We learn from our mistakes. If this is the arrangement that we had with Uhuru and I saw what it did, I'm now looking for a different arrangement. If I can find somebody who is willing to be my running mate, we serve the country for 10 years and he goes home, I'll be okay. And Rigathi had agreed to that particular deal. But now that he's in power, now that he was in power, he changed. He no longer was interested in that kind of deal. That kind of arrangement was not something he was keen on. He wanted now to vie, and anybody who he was supposed to mentor automatically turned into an enemy. He now saw the likes of Waiguru, the likes of Moses Kuria, the likes of Ndindi Nyoro, Kimani Ichung'wah, and others became opponents as supposed to be mentees. Then Rigathi went forward. He was now like, I'm the senior-most leader. If you want to do something in this region, you do it through me. I am now your kingpin. I'm now the future leader of this region. Ladies and gentlemen, you see where we are. We are at a point where the deputy president is not doing what they agreed on, but he still wants to be treated as if nothing has changed. The president wants somebody who is solely focused on delivering the roles. The deputy president is now in politics. You are now having a case where the deputy president, who was supposed to be a loyal assistant, is now seeing the president as not just co-equal, but as an opponent. Up to that point, ladies and gentlemen, who betrayed who? I said if we put emotions aside and we focus on facts, the agreement is simple. We are retiring together. We are mentoring people. On my side, I will give you roles and I'll ensure you are respected. Ruto does his part above and beyond. Rigathi chooses that deal is not enough for him. He changes the deal. He now vies. He is now interested in the politics of the future. He might even want to vie in 2027, let alone 2032. And so you have a case where the deputy has already gone against the agreement with the president, but he doesn't stop there. He goes to the point of now attacking the president, painting the president as incompetent, a flip-flop, somebody who is out of touch with the people, and painting himself as a better leader, somebody who listens to the ground, who knows what the people want. So he doesn't see Ruto as his boss. He sees Ruto as equal, but also an opponent for the future elections. So who betrayed who again? In my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, even if I talked here for 2 hours, in my opinion, based on the agreement that these two gentlemen had, Rigathi Gachagua changed the deal. And that, for me, is what betrayal is. If you change the deal in the middle of the game, if you change the rules in the middle of the game to favor you and hurt the other person, that is betrayal, in my opinion. I don't know how you see betrayal. It's like I come and attack you. And when you respond, I use that response to tell people how you are disrespecting me. So I attack you, it's normal. You respond, you disrespect me. And I use that example. Because for the Sudi case, it was like, there is no day Sudi had ever talked against the president, the deputy president, never. The deputy president, thinking that Sudi is pro-Ndindi Nyoro and others, he goes to Rift Valley to give warnings. And even tell people, stay in your own constituency. Don't come to people's constituency. Stay in your constituency. And they attack the likes of Sudi. Fine. Sudi responds. When Sudi responds, now Sudi has disrespected him. And now he uses that to say that the president promised that none of his people will attack or disrespect him. Remember, this is just an MP responding to an attack made in his own backyard. If there was no that attack, there would be no response. So it's like I attack you, what I was saying. I attack you, and when you try to respond, when you try to I punch. When you fight back, I'm like, you see, he's beating me. Have you seen how he's beating me? I'm being beaten. So I punch, and when you punch back, I'm like, are you seeing how I'm being punched? That is the case. It's not as if there is any person who has ever gone to attack the deputy president under Ruto. Nobody. There is no record. I could even challenge you. Prove that record. All of them are response to what the deputy president said. Even Ichung'wa, who is being accused of being Ruto's, I don't know what, being Ruto's attack dog, even the Kimani Ichung'wa has only responded to name calling because the deputy president decided that those who were not going to obey him in Mount Kenya were sellouts. He called them tukunias and very unfavorable titles. He gave them very unfavorable titles simply because of saying, no, I don't think we are supposed to join you in fighting Ruto. You become an enemy. And because he had incited the public, he is the victim now. If now Ichung'wa talks back, Ichung'wa now disrespects him. Remember, he's the one who is calling them names. And when they talk back, they are the ones who are now being called puppets of Ruto, who Ruto has sent to attack him. So in all this, it's just playing victim. But the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, so that we conclude, the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, that the deputy president decided to go astray from the agreement. And then even after going astray from the agreement, he still demanded to be treated the way the agreement had been made. He still demanded to be treated the same, even though he had shortchanged his boss. Even though he was now looking down upon his boss, he expected his boss to still meet him with an open arm and say, okay, my friend, I understand why you disrespect me, etc. So that is where we are today. We are at a situation where the deputy president does not recognize his boss in any way. He uses every moment he gets to disparage him and make him look like a loser and useless, and make himself appear as the people's messiah and the good person, incite the public against his boss. But at the end of the day, he still wants to be treated well, and if you don't, he's the victim. I don't think so. In my opinion, it is Rigathi Gachagua who betrayed Ruto. And what is happening to him is as a result of his own actions. Even though now he's playing the victim, but it is a case of, I punch you, and when you punch me back, I cry that I'm being beaten. So it is I expect to punch you, and you are not supposed to punch back. And if you punch back, I am being persecuted. I don't think that is how honest politics is being done, even though the deputy president insists that he's a truthful man. In my opinion, that is not how truthful people behave. Anyway, let me know what your opinion on this subject is. Like I said, put emotions aside and go with the facts.